everyone. I'm Dr. Greg Sloop, and it's time for Live at 5 on this Friday, May 3rd, 2024. Hope you've had an absolutely wonderful day. It is great to be able to bring you Live at 5 here on this Friday. We're looking at some prominent stories and passages from the Old Testament. Today we're looking at Genesis chapter 21. Good to see you, Richard Britt. Glad you're here. Can you hear me okay? All is well? Chapter 21 of Genesis begins with the story of Isaac's birth. Now, based on how detailed some of the other stories have been, it's kind of amazing that this story is rather brief. Starts in 21, chapter 1, and it reads, "And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived," excuse me, been dealing with serious allergies this week. I apologize. "For Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son," wow, I'm so sorry. "And Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore to him Isaac. Then Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Now, Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made me laugh, has made laughter for me, and all who hear will laugh with me. She also said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children? For I have borne him a son in his old age." Now, Abraham was at least 10 years older than Sarah, which would make her about 90 when she had this child. This was a miracle from God. This was something that could only be attributed to God. This was something that could not be described as normal. It could not be described as regular. It could not be described as anything other than miraculous. God giving Abraham a son by his very advanced in age wife, Sarah, was a divine intervention and an act of grace that God gave Abraham and Sarah. He had promised it. God had promised it. There was no question in his mind. Sarah and Abraham both had laughed at times when they heard this promise of a son. But here in the appropriate time, and the time that God said was right, in the time that made sense in the grand scheme of all life, according to God, Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age at the time that God said. Now, the angels had told her a year earlier that she would have a child by the time they came back the next year. Abraham called him by the name that God had given them for him, Isaac, which meant laughter. Isaac meant laughter. How fitting is that? How amazing is that? Itzhak, it means laughter. Abraham did as God had told him to do with all the rest of his household. He circumcised him on the 8th day. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And then Sarah kind of goes back and reiterates what had happened. God made me laugh. Now everybody that hears that I've had a son is going to laugh. They're all going to get a big kick out of this. But in the end, it is a blessing and a miracle and a fulfilled promise of God. That is what we get out of this story. God fulfilled his promise. God had to be a man of his word. He was a man of his word, and he made them laugh, and they couldn't hardly comprehend it. That's why Sarah said, go into Hagar, my maidservant, and have a child by her. They had the child. It caused tension and strife, and as I said before, getting ahead of God on their part and on the part of these girls who were the daughters of Lot, they all committed a disobedience, if you will, of God's plan and purpose, and it created enmity and strife between all their descendants because of it. But in this particular case, God's plan was true, God's promise came true, and they had a son. And even though the whole world might say, who would have ever thought that Sarah would nurse a child? She did bear him a son in his old age, and the promise of God was fulfilled. I hope this has blessed you. It's good again to see my friend Richard Britt, Gene Goodman on here, Sharon Noblet. There are others that we can't see your name quite yet. Thank you for being with us. It is always our honor and privilege to present this short Bible study each and every day at 5 o'clock, Sunday through Friday. We won't be on tomorrow because it is Saturday, that Sabbath rest. But we'll be back Sunday afternoon. We also have Sunday morning service at 10:30 a.m. We have a Sunday evening prayer service this week at 6 p.m. I hope you'll be a part of it, either in-house at 2211 West A Street in Kannapolis, or online right back here, or on my regular Greg Sloop page, or on the Kannapolis Church of God Facebook page, or the Kannapolis Church of God YouTube channel. 4 outlets where you can see this, and I hope you'll take the time to do just that. God bless you so much for being with us. We do appreciate it. Spend time with God every day in the Word of God and prayer. It'll help you understand God's plan and God's promises and how they are true and how they are perfect. And it'll be the best thing you do all day. Please know we love you and we're praying for you. And I look forward to seeing each of you again Sunday at 10:30 a.m. and live